All right, welcome creatives, community, and kind folks to RPG with DBJ, and especially this Obsidian Star series as we publicly go through a design journal in terms of this tabletop role playing game. And you guys are hilarious. Um, and also, something happened just before I tried to go live that was a comedy of errors on my part, and I'll end up cleaning up later. So my producer, one of my cats, um, decided that she wanted some attention now and not an hour from now, which is what she normally waits. So she ended up knocking something over, which made a spill, which meant me going after it to try to clean it up, which caused another issue. And anyway, it's a whole big thing. And then I surprised her, and then hairball had to come up at that very moment. I'm like, so yeah. Oh man. Let's get into Conundrum. So I've talked a lot in and around and about baggage as being a type of negative that happens to player characters or stars when stressful things happen in their lives, whether it's like physically stressful, like getting shot in the knee, or socially stressful, like being accused of a crime, or intellectually stressful, like not being able to figure out how to prevent the, I don't know, reactor core meltdown or something like that. And what I haven't done is talk about, like, before all the negative things happen, how do we solve that issue in the first place? And the overriding name for it with a capital C is called Conundrums. Now, I'm a thesaurusician, anyway, I used a thesaurus, and I like wordplay. And I thought of other things like problems and challenges and things like that. But conundrum is enough of a word you very rarely used outside our purview that I think it is great for our system to accomplish all the problems and things. And we're going to talk about the number ranges and what it means to reduce the conundrum, and how does that affect the game narratively. And if you're rolling 2d12 and it's high but not over, what happens if you have, say, stats of 4 and 7, and you roll, you roll high like a 5, which is over your number 4 but below your number 7, and then you roll another die, and what happens in between, and all that kind of stuff. Taste, you're so funny. She's okay. The producer of the show, is fine. Her name is Sophie, as relates to Sophia Loren, a 19th century actress. But so yes, she's quite all right. It was just me running over, and I startled her, and then the whole 9. It was a whole big thing. All right, so let's got to go back up here to what you guys have to say. Yeah, Shice is like, rules light but realism heavy. Yeah, I want to again, I want to embrace the realistic things that in science fiction that are often ignored in science fiction, many times for good reasons, and also for storytelling, right? If your point is to tell a story of humans making alien contact, all the issues that happen in between may distract people, give people red herrings on their way to describing your story. So I understand why that happens. Happy Mountain Festival Day. We don't have that here. Shit lords, you're so wrong. You're so right. Yeah, sweet spot for criminality. Unfortunately, guys talking about IQ levels and things like that. Yeah, or sweet spot for forcing people into criminality, I guess, as a default. Yeah, and King says Las Vegas solves problems with dice and sometimes crowbars. Yeah, there's a great movie called The Cooler. That's fun. A Las Vegas styled movie. Yeah. Speaking of criminality, won't they automatically euthanize the 85 and under club in the 25th century? Talking about geniuses, because Caligula says, speaking of criminality, the first comment was, speaking of IQ, Won't everybody in the 25th century automatically augment their brains to be geniuses? The simple answer to that is yes. Yes. So um under the statistics of your character, there is no intelligence score. Under the well, to go beyond that, under the statistics of the character, not only is there no intelligence score, there's actually no um there are no classic statistics. Let's see. There, there we go. Okay, okay. We're gonna pull this up because I didn't think I would need to, but I am gonna pull an image up of and let's go with the one. Let's go with the image of the character sheet that is not horrible. There we go. All right, so let's share this out here. Sorry, you guys know I'm a little bit of a luddite. Um, So, if you notice on the top of the character sheet, there's no strength, there's no endurance, there isn't any intelligence or gene skill, and the reason for that is that every character, like your cell phone, has all human knowledge accessible to them. Now, how you describe that, whether it's because you've lived 268 years or you've been you've had sleep teachers, you've lived in VR realms that taught you everything about history and science or whatever. So how, this will be a different subject because maybe we'll do this for a different subject. How do you differentiate your character if we don't have strength and dex and constitution and the classic 6 stats or variations thereof? And that's because everybody's got what's essentially called a button. Your button is like a small button-sized device that is in your own personal AI that helps you filter through all the information that is in your brain, and it's like an external drive to organize your thoughts and your experiences and your knowledge, and then re-access that back from your button into your brain so that you can, perform brain surgery or, that kind of stuff. Shice says, yeah, I'm trying to think of taglines that set Obsidian apart in as few words as possible. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Because justify the reason for Obsidian to exist in 10 words or less. That's the hard part too. That is really hard because it's like it's the sales part of gaming that we tend to not like to do, but it's necessary. So yeah. Caligula says the alleged connection between low IQ and crime is 1, no impulse control, and 2, not being able to foresee the consequences of your actions. And those two things combined really, because society has rules, and if you can't abide by those rules, we often make those rules laws. So we have like social rules, and then we have legal rules, which are laws. And if you can't abide by them, you turn it far more criminality. You're unable to control yourself to stop doing the thing that people say don't do. Yeah, please don't take the pastries. They're sitting out there, and we get that they smell good. Don't take a pastry, and the person takes the pastry anyway because it smells good. Yeah, I see your shit lords. Okay, so you could see on the top of this character sheet, like we've got our attributes, we got 3 of those, we got approaches, we got 6 of those. You end up picking 3 for your character, but we also have the downside to that. So sometimes you might have to spend, or many times you'll have to spend your strive, which is a real word, but it's also a combination of stress and drive, and you could think of it as both at the same time. It's like it's your stress level, and it's also your drive to continue, and you'll be spending some of that. But then I've always talked about the downside, and the downside, of course, is baggage. But what's the thing in the middle? What are you striving against? And so yeah, I do hear you there. He says we have so many indie RPGs now. Let's put this up here. We have so many indie RPGs now. Everybody's going to be like, oh, another one. So we gotta drive home that the setting is plausible, hard sci-fi, yet the game is less complicated than usual shit. I definitely agree with that. And the, you guys know what the elevator pitch is, right? You get in an elevator with someone who can get your dream started. How do you convince this person who you don't know, but maybe open to an idea to get your dream? Yes, Sophie, Soph, I know you were feeling bad. I'm sorry. You can go lay down. Yeah. You can go lay down. She's all right. I just startled her. And so you to convince this individual on the elevator, you have to have a sales pitch short enough to ride the elevator up before they get off and they go, come into my office, come see me. I think your idea is great. We'll get it started. And many indie RPGs now the difficulty in making something different and something same is that if it's too different, despite the fact that we use words like we want something original, our brains will make us default back to something we're familiar with. So that's why so many fantasy indie RPGs exist and are still existing and are popular, because we are rationalizing machines. We take evidence and we try to organize them into thoughts. And so fantasy is something that we're used to, so we like to see it again. Science fiction is very difficult to do because people are like a little bit scared of it, and there's a level of pre-knowledge you must have with science fiction. And if we can base it on reality, I think that's a way for people to be drawn into it. Sorry. Want to see genetic IQ come to Romania? I don't know how to take that, and I don't want to make I don't want to presume what that means. Yeah, villainous outlaw pastry taker. Yeah, so with a low IQ. So, which also brings up an issue of individuals born naturally. Nats versus genetic modification. I don't know. Okay, so Shai says conundrums / puzzles in games are an issue because I am legit not smart or patient enough for most logic puzzles. So how do you handle puzzles if your character is way smarter than the player? That is always an issue. So before we get into the actual conundrum, this is how I personally handle smart character, dumb player like myself, and the opposite, very smart player, very dumb character solving an issue. And it's strangely enough, it's pretty easy. If your character has an IQ well above yourself, then your IQ equates every other player at the table. So if you and 3 other players are trying to come up with an answer, and you don't come up with the answer, but another player came up with that answer, your character in the narrative came up with that answer because your character has the brain power of 4 other individuals. So yes, you guys are role playing and blah blah blah, and the very smart player is playing a dumb barbarian and they come up with the answer. You could be silly and make it narrative, and maybe the barbarian points something out as the dumb character that everyone else keeps overlooking. But I also feel like it's a group effort. And if you're the smart character, your brains is equal to everybody else's brains as a player function. And of course, your character will come up with the answer very quickly, in a split instance, even though you guys have been talking for 8 minutes, right? So that's how I look at it. And Space Barbarians. I think doesn't Runehammer have a game like that already? Like Viking space something? I can't remember. Yeah, Andrew Wood taught me how to do a dumb guy. Just watch these 6 straight down the line. Yeah, there's a bit of a survivalistic overcoming the conundrum issue with 3D6 down the line, the old OSR. It's kind of cool to do it. Very much a player knowledge era of the game. Okay, conundrums, what are they? Conundrum is a problem that requires a solution. That's exactly what it is. A conundrum will have a number. That number will be from 1 to 12. Usually, very rarely will it have a 1, and very difficult if it has a 12, but it'll have a number within that range from 1 to 12. And we can assign nearly every problem in front of the player characters, the stars, to a conundrum, and then solving that conundrum by reducing that number to 0. Here are the two difficult parts in describing what a conundrum is. First of all, we don't need to know the details of solving a conundrum. So here's a complicated conundrum. Your starship is out of control and it's under constant acceleration, and you need to use gravity to slingshot yourself around Jupiter and then eventually around the sun to get back to Mars, even though you understand that your starship has broken, I don't know, destroyed or broken navigational charting methods and blah, blah, blah. So we don't need to know how to navigate a starship. We don't need to know what the physics are in terms of slingshotting. All we need to know is we've got a conundrum that's an 8, and we need to reduce it to 0 to arrive on Mars on time. And using our statistics, our force flex fulcrum, plus a little bit of our approaches, whether we're going to be careful or focused or swift or subtle about it, to start making, and mind you, there's going to be other things added to this, right? So not only are we using these, we are down here in our the second part of our character sheet. In our pockets, we're going to have some gear and baggage. We're going to use our gear, which are going to be things like this is going to have to change. Some of our convictions, our foundation, which is our body, our vocation, which is our skills, description, which is your descriptions are things like charming, brilliant, athletic, muscular. Those are like physical or mental descriptions of your character. We may have to use some connections. Your location is kind of the place in the solar system that you're most familiar with, and we're going to use all those and add from 1 to 3 to those statistics above. And doing that, we will try to become successful in what we are trying to do. We're going to try to become successful in solving the conundrum. And the way we describe the conundrum is going to affect the narrative. So we don't actually have to roll any dice if a player has a great idea to solve the conundrum. So an example would be, I have a connection to like some kind of star riggers or whatever, and they're going to help us slingshot. We're gonna meet up with them. I'm gonna burn my connection. They're gonna meet us halfway there. They're gonna approach our ship by accelerating at our same speed, and they're gonna lead us to Mars, and we're fine. And if that solves the issue, then don't roll dice. You're like, oh, you're gonna burn your connection? Fine. So you can burn parts of your character sheet so you can get past the die rolling, unless people like to, some people like to roll dice, even if they have a way to like succeed narratively. So, yep. Playing a low IQ character might automatically go metagaming if you make any kind of rational decisions at all, though. Yeah, but it's also a game, right? Like, we really have to remember that, the old adage of "that's what my character would do" is that's pretty old school. When I say old school, like the character only does what we tell them to do. And even though you might be playing a character with a low IQ, it also doesn't mean that just as we don't like characters who always succeed, it doesn't mean a low IQ character will always fail. So it's not that they won't always make the wrong decisions. It just means that there's a percentage chance that they will make those, but maybe there's a percentage chance they, in a random assortment of pushing buttons, could someone literally push the correct button once the first time? Sure. Maybe it happens at that point. So Taste of Banana says, surely they must have scrap metal scavengers in space, right? Plenty of potential for conundrums and role-playing a low IQ there. Why are you guys attached to the low IQ? Get rid of that. There are ways to get around that, although it does make some good story elements, right? Like, a person born in this universe with a low IQ is going to be severely handicapped. And I don't mean that they are handicapped. I'm saying like dealing with the high technology and the fast movements and all the. So would it be okay, or maybe there might even be legalese issues about forcing a person with a low IQ to have their brain augmented to make them more brilliant? And or maybe that particular individual wants to enhance their brain, but they're not given the opportunity. Or what kind of prejudices, social prejudices, are there against those who refuse to get brain augmentation and have low IQs, and the rest of society says you're choosing to be this way and you're a drain on our resources, go away, right? So those are all good, very good story elements. Yeah, come on, people, everybody. We're going to be a fucking genius in the 25th century, especially if that low IQ person has a very brilliant button that they carry around with them. And that button might be giving them suggestions like, please don't press the red button. Why don't you press the green one? That'll make you happy. And then that person goes, okay. And they press the green button, right? So there's also that. We are presuming in this future that we're going to have AI. Every person, citizen's going to probably have an AI assistant that has grown with them, that knows them better than they know themselves. So someone in this setting with low IQ would be the greatest scientist in our timeline. Yes. Yes, because technically measuring IQ is based on the consensus of the population, kind of. So the smarter people get, the more people will align themselves with IQ, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah. Playing Forrest Gump in space actually might survive a whole lot better than we may make things more complicated than they need to be. And Forrest Gump was an uncomplicated individual, of fictional individual. Yeah, Andrew Wood said you should deliberately make characters with such handicaps to make an interesting and challenging game experience. I absolutely agree with that, and I'm considering adding like a advantage disadvantage thing, bone benefit boost, positive trait negative trait thing, and just incorporate that into this like gear and baggage system. Like, oh, my character automatically has this baggage on them, which might be like gullible, or what's another one that's kind of in the low IQ thing, since you guys are focused on this. Uh, um, Low impulse, gullible. I'm thinking of GURPS right now. Things like that. So maybe some like mental issues, and then that character has that in there filling up their gear. So I think you could play that. Yeah, impulsive. There's some other gulps. Geez, GURPS. Generic universal role playing system. GURPS. Yeah, playing out the plight of the gnat. Yeah, yeah. I was born on Earth in the back seat of a car, and the rest of the world is leaving me behind. All right, so conundrums. Conundrums operate like difficulties, and a conundrum, a monster or a robot or a mercenary group, or all your physical baddies, the adversaries, are built using the exact same system that all other conundrums are built on. So there is no difference in solving the issue of shooting a squad of 5 Black Ops soldiers that are hunting you down and trying to navigate through a I don't know, the asteroid belt, or solving a social diplomatic envoy problem on Mercury or something. It's all the same thing. And the reason why I want it to be this way, uh, sausage making and all that kind of stuff, the reason why I want to make conundrums across the board the same is because I want to get away from there won't I want to establish that you you can't win the game by only picking specific things to win that game. So I hate using negatives to make a positive, but if you have a game where doing damage is the way you win and having more hit points is the way you win, then the only people winning are those who are doing the most damage and have the most hit points. If you're not measuring other aspects of the game, while that it can be fun, it can also be a little bit difficult in terms of um of describing vectors of problems and getting across that these other things are also terrible and dangerous when, on your character sheet and mechanically in the game and narratively expressed in the game, those things really don't matter. If you can't get lost, if you can't go hungry, if your social status doesn't matter, if you're uh, if politically all changes in the political sphere don't matter mechanically, then players are going to start to ignore those things, or at least think of them as secondary or tertiary. And what I want as conundrums, and conundrums don't need to be instant, like picking a lock. I've used picking a lock or bypassing a city guard or something like that. They can be immediate. You can just roll dice and do pass fail and keep moving on. You could not roll dice at all if players have a great idea. But if it's a conundrum, can be very extended, and it can extend out for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, even. And so having conundrums can be, for example, a conundrum could be convincing. There's a criminal organization that organized crime organization that's hunting you down. And that conundrum could be huge. They are constantly hunting you down, and you need to solve the problem. And killing their henchmen is not going to solve the problem. Blowing up their starships is not going to solve the problem. Paying them off, despite the fact that you think that may solve the problem, maybe this individual or this organization has a vendetta against you. So how do you solve it? Well, it's a conundrum. And using your skills and abilities to reduce that problem and solve that problem down to zero is part of the game. Now, there may be other things interrupting your ability to solve that problem. You're going on other missions, you're fleeing from other hunters, you're tracking down individuals, you are trying to hide, sneak, do all kinds of other things while you have these conundrums in the background as well. So winning the game, is there a prime overarching objective at all, like become king of the solar system or just survive? Well, okay, that's a two-step question. So one of the biggest questions is what is the biggest question in Obsidian Star is, what is humanity and where are we going? Humanity encompassing every single sentient being that has existing now and will exist in the future. What is humanity? And how will we survive? The solar system is huge. I mean, our own solar system is huge, but I also want to get across that it's kind of a bubble. It's a bit of it's like there are some places to kind of hide in the corners of the solar system, but no one ever can really be untouched. And the longer humanity lives, the greater chance they have bumping up against a thing that will destroy them, whether it's a gamma ray burst or a rogue planet or black holes or nanotech, von Neumann nanotechs start spreading across the universe, or think that all of these things are issues where humanity itself killing each other off. So the big question is, what is humanity? Where is humanity, and why is humanity? I guess if you want to be silly about it, that's the biggest question. Coming down, and that's for us to discover along the way. Moving down from there, like, what do the player characters want to do? That's going to be up to the constellation of the stars, right? That's the circle of player characters and what they want to do. Do you want to be freebooters and just like travel the stars, buying and selling and trading? Do you want to be bounty hunters going after the most dangerous prey out there? Do you want to be pirates and scavengers and steal and loot along the way? Do you want to work for a corporate interest trying to instill value and exploit resources, or maybe be some form of law enforcement? So that's going to be based on the player characters. But overall, in the background is this constant nagging question of humanity. What is humanity? Where are we going? What are we doing? And a lot of the problems that are going to come across is some people have made that decision, and you may not like their answers. So yeah, how about chill out and be happy? And the thing is, yes, when a player character runs out of their strive, in many ways, that's kind of what they want to do. So unlike some other role-playing games where when your hit points drop to 0, you're dead. In this, if you want to call them, if I have to make an analogy between hit points, strive is the first part of your hit points, and then the second part are your force, flex, and fulcrum, which is your physical. I guess you could describe this as your physical destruction. So strive is more like drive, stress, luck, willpower, that kind of thing. And so when that drops to 0, most people will want to retire out of a dangerous lifestyle. And there's too many things distracting you to make you retire. So you almost have to strive against the things that say, hey, why don't you just sit back in this chair? Like what's the movie Wall-E? Sit back in this chair and drink high fructose corn syrup drinks and have us do everything for you. And oh yeah, plug this into your cortical stack or whatever, and live in a VR realm. That's a heaven. Yes. Yep. Cocaine orgasm overdrives. Yep. That's literally drawing your characters. Is it possible for a player character to literally, and I'm going to say air quotes, die by just plugging themselves into a massive cocaine orgasm overdrive? Yes. That is a way for a character to self-delete from or be deleted from the world, that they throw their hands up and go, I'm not doing this any longer. This other thing is a whole lot better. Drew says, I win the game by activating a data core that transforms our sun into a black hole and kills everyone in the solar system. Yes. Is that a threat? Yeah, that's a threat. I mean, heck, there's even factions out there that are thinking of turning Jupiter into its own star. There are some who want to move our own sun to get it to move by turning it into there's a drive, a Shikata drive, something like that. Anyway, yeah, good plan, Drew. The conundrum would be figure out how to do that now. Yeah. Shai says, speaking of happy, is there any place you can just live out in the country and have a nice cabin in the woods somewhere, and a babbling brook and a flowery meadow and all that? To be honest with you, no. Well, no, let me take this back. Yes and no. So you could plug yourself into a VR system and just live your life out that way. But at some point, someone's going to turn the plugs. Someone's going to turn that mechanism off. Right now, it may not happen immediately. And when I say immediately, within our lifetime, it could happen within a couple thousand years even. But at some point, someone's going to unplug you and go, and either they're going to delete you or they're going to wake you up and go, what are you doing? Like, wake the hell up. We got to get out of here. There are people who are constantly trying to find corners of the universe, our solar system, the SIS. And there are people trying to find a place in the SIS to live out their lives and be unaffected by other people. I just want to be left alone and do my own thing. The problem is, to do that, you become a very incestuous minded society. You are only breeding and living and communicating amongst yourselves within yourselves. And it can make a loop that can destroy itself and go into entropy at a certain point, whether that means you need fresh air or fresh water or power or genetic material or knowledge and communication and things like that. So the solar system, while it's huge and very empty, it also, humanity has the ability to go to the far corners, and everybody wants to sit in the corner. You know, yeah, no cottage core obsidian star. There are people who work very hard to earn enough to get themselves some VR time in their own fantasy worlds. So that is a thing. Yes, Shitlord says something like dry land and water world, just finding a nice place in the cabin of woods, the never-ending quest. Yep, yep. Now, again, a player character could air quotes die by finding their own corner of the universe and just retiring, and they just go off and they go, I'm not doing being a bounty hunter any longer. I like this thing. Yes, good. Taste of Benat says, could you terraform an asteroid that's just flying out into the void and escape the dark future that way? People have already done that. There have been seed ships that went out into the Oort cloud and beyond. We don't know what happened to them. So they left and decided to, whether it was a religious pilgrimage or scientific exploration or a military voyage or scientists that are tracking down or who found a signal from a far off place. There are already people who've done that within Obsidian Star. No one knows what happened to them. These are multi-generational treks that are going far away and accelerating at constant acceleration, and the communications with them is long and arduous. So, and that can be a story element that the player characters are the people left behind from and keeping track of the communications of the people that have left and are leaving. But the further they go away, the longer that communication gap becomes, in which case, yeah, we're kind of stuck in a cage. Now, a goal of this game, if it's successful, would be to describe the rest of the universe in our galaxy, the spiral arm or something like that, which would be kind of cool. But as it stands now, no, everybody's kind of stuck in the same cage. So I'd like to talk about conundrums and orbits. So a conundrum is basically a number that you want to reduce to 0 to solve the problem. And that could be picking a lock. It could be sneaking into a heavily guarded scientific lab. It could be navigating a socialite party, and all the above. It's a conundrum. The difficult part of describing a conundrum, despite rolling some dice and getting the number down to 0, strangely enough, is describing what's happening between X and 0, or X minus something to 0, whatever the case might be. So, for example, you're at a dinner party, and it's happening in a private residence in an asteroid on Saturn or orbiting Saturn. And this very rich person has hollowed out one of these moons or whatever, and it's huge. They've invited 1,000 people to this grand party. The party's going to go on for, I don't know, 287 hours or something. Like it's going to be a week-long celebration, and the player characters are there, and they're talking with individuals. And so what the description of the solving the conundrum is having the interactions and having the discussions and things like that. Now, you may not want to role play every single interaction. This keeps the game master, the spiral, from having to come up with 57 different NPCs with their backgrounds and things. We're just going to be like, okay, listen, you're at this dinner party. You're trying to, convince people to join your side for this corporate endeavor or whatever. But on the side, you're also, uncovering secret information. And so being absent from the party is not an option. You're some of the players, or many of them, are really going to need to be at the party, because if you're not at the party and you're like, I want to just focus on opening up they have a hidden data core that we know that they have, and we need to find out where it is because this rich person is going to use it or whatever, right? And so the conundrum is the dinner party, and one or more of the player characters may be involved in it to, distract the party goers and find things out. And let's say the dinner party has a conundrum of 4, and you want to reduce that down to 0. If the PCs leave before reducing that conundrum, they haven't succeeded. But what happens in between, how long does it take them to do this? That depends. So there's also something, and I'm blatantly stealing it, even though it's not stealable. It's actually in the open. It's it's in the open market. My brain's not working. It's in the Creative Commons. Wow. Blades in the Dark uses clocks, and very common. This is something stolen by everybody. It's basically a timer. Blades in the Dark being a dark Victorian, or Arcano Victorian setting, and using clocks makes a lot of sense. You got pocket watches and clock towers and things like that, and it really is emblematic of it. In this game, there's something known as orbits, and orbits run the same way. Orbits usually are notable by having a 3, 6, 9, or 12 slice orbit. And an orbit is basically like a thing that's happening in the background that the players probably should be concerned with. And it's a visual and mental representation of a thing that's going to happen if the players don't get themselves involved in it. So an orbit is basically a conundrum that's even further out of the purview of the player characters. So an orbit could be a paper nation has found a paper nation is searching for and trying to find orbital bombardment coordinates for lost military satellites, right? So a paper nation is basically yes. So orbit's like a plot arc. Absolutely, it's a plot arc, and you can listen. The characters may not know, but the players may know this. So an orbit like an arc, and think of an orbit like a planet orbiting, right? So the planet is orbiting and it's going away from you, and it's tick, 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 going further. And then it orbits around the sun. And that's kind of the halfway point where the players may not really see it coming towards them. And then as it comes around the sun and comes to intercept the players on its complete orbit, it's ticking all the way. Yeah, it's like a background plot arc. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can have multiple orbits going on. And as the orbit gets closer and it starts ticking down further and further and further, the greater chance the players will impact them dramatically, right? So let's say there's a paper nation, an old Earth nation that wants to find out where these orbital bombardment things. They're like tungsten rods. They can aim at a planetary surface like Mars or a moon off of Jupiter or something like that. And you accelerate them at relativistic speeds, and it's basically like a nuclear weapon. It's just a tungsten rod, and boom, you blast it down or something. And so agents of these fallen paper nations are like, we're going to find this, we're going to use this as a weapon, and we're going to get back to our past glory. And the players are like, nah, I mean, it's important, but it's not really that important. And let's say it's a six tick arc, one tick, another tick. And so it's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, when it comes to like 4, 5, 6, it's heading straight on into the players' faces. So when it comes to number 4 and 5 on a 6 arc, a 6 orbit, now that paper nation, maybe the players are hunting after a criminal or an AI. And then what happens? Alarms go off, and above them are these, tungsten rods that are aimed directly at them while they're doing this other thing. And so these are background plot arcs. Now, what I'm going to suggest is players make their own background plot arcs, right? It's their own bad guys. It's their own problems. It's their own issues that they have to deal with, and juggling those issues. Like, do we go to Mercury because there's some sort of diplomatic thing? There's piracy going on, and we don't want too many of this stuff going on, because if there's too many choices, then there is no good choice, or there really isn't any choice at all. But if you want to have the physical representation of a background plot arc from one of your bad guys, I'm going to suggest using orbits. And orbits become conundrums. Conundrums need to be solved. Conundrums are problems that need a solution, and then so on and so forth. Yeah, Drew says shouldn't ignore the orbit. Not me. Shouldn't ignore the orbit, not mean that there's will be no impact, since I do not get in the way. Wait, okay. This must be spell correction. All right. Oh, you're you're being silly. No, Drew. If you ignore it, it doesn't mean it won't happen. It means that it will happen. You just ignored it. It doesn't mean it. I'll get out the way and just let the. Yeah. I mean, sure. Maybe a player character is like, I don't care if, I don't know, Mars gets bombarded by tungsten rods from some I don't know, name a random nation from old Earth, right? Like the player characters may not care, but it's going to happen, right? So when the players go to Mars, there may be a section that's destroyed, irradiated. Maybe the players get blamed for it, or the faction the player characters are aligned with is no longer has the power they thought it did. Or maybe the players were working from a headquarters, and the PCs are like do 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 do, and they come back to Mars and they're like, oh yeah, remember that headquarters that gave you all your special equipment and blah 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 and your missions? Yeah, it's gone. Hey, impossible mission force, you've been disavowed, right? It's that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Let the orbit happen. Just like on this toilet Terra. Yeah, just let it go down the toilet. Don't do anything about it. Or as Neil deGrasse Tyson once said, if we could terraform Mars, why wouldn't we just terraform Earth? All of humanity wants to check out and plug into the permanent orgasm machine, and you have to convince them not to. How is that for an orbit? Yep, exactly. I mean, listen, we have people that we consider to be relatively intelligent, and when you tell them that if you do this thing, these other terrible things will happen to you, and we have people who are actively like, no, you can't tell me what to do. It's not because they don't care for their lives. It's just that we have people who just want to fold their arms and say, don't tell me what to do. I don't like being told what to do. And imagine that mentality writ large across the solar system when someone says, hey, I'm a scientist and I just found out that there's going to be there's a mega planet that's, I don't know, I'm making this up. It's the size of 20 of our suns put together, and it's going to, like a bowling ball, it's going to come flying, some rogue planet's going to come flying through our solar system. We need to move all of humanity now for something that's going to happen in 1,000 years, 5,000 years, 50,000 years. People are just going to look at it. You can't tell me what to do. You're just saying that because you want power over me. And it's like, no, there's a gamma ray burst or a black hole or and all other kinds of existential threats that could be happening. So yeah, that could be happening in the background as well. So I like it. Now, if we let's pull ourselves back a little bit. If you want to have orbits where there are criminal organizations that are dominating part of your society, or you have a game that takes place on Mars, let's say, and you're not going much further than Mars. Mars is a governmentally, I'm picturing as a representative republic. So the government of Mars has like corporate interests, it's got religious interests, ecological interests, and each little area has their own representatives. And maybe one faction is taking over from another. Maybe there is a criminal faction that's taking over, or there are eco terrorists that are dominating the sphere, and that can be an orbit unto itself in terms of what you remember it being may not be the same thing if you ignore this orbit. And mind you, the player characters don't need to solve it. This is just a background element in your setting to let your players know, like me, if I come to your game and I'm thinking, oh, Mars is this very equalized governmental system where you have the greens who want to terraform the place and the golds, and you go, no, the golds have taken over. It's corporate cyberpunk, corporate interests all over the place, and there's people who are hiding out in the outback of Mars trying to get away from the corporate overlords and blah blah blah. And I go, oh, okay. And you know, it's a way to let the players know there's going to be a change, and these changes, these orbits, are things that are going to be difficult. You could even represent orbits as planets that are moving much further away than the player characters would like as the planets orbit the sun. So, for example, the players say, "Hey, Mars is our headquarters. Let's just head back to Mars." And you go, Mars is actually the furthest distance away from where you are at. So you are in Saturn. You're on a moon orbiting Saturn, and you're at this high level party about this very rich trillionaire or something, and you're like, "Hey, let's take our starship back to Mars." Well, if Mars is the furthest point away, it might take you. It may not be an easy hop, skip, and jump. So, an orbit can actually represent problems and not conundrums. I'll say I need to use a different word. Disadvantageous elements in the player character's background that normally aren't there, but are there for the player characters to solve. So an example would be an orbit could be the player characters traveling somewhere where fuel is very scarce. So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, they're gas giants, and maybe getting filtering gas from the gas giants to fill up the tanks for the starship. Maybe those planets are orbiting far away, and fuel is going to become more and more rare to find, and that could be a 6-point orbit. When it gets to 4, 5, and 6, the player characters might be looking around like, "Oh shit, we've been forgetting about the fact that we don't have a place to get more fuel," and maybe they have to make deals or make a one-way trip to find fuel, or scavenge ice from an ice hauler, or something like that. And so orbits can represent background information changes that the player characters might have to confront one day, which becomes a very big conundrum for them. Shitlords, a representative republic where you have to buy all the elective reps and get them in your pocket before the bad guys do. Yes. There was an episode from the most recent Battlestar Galactica where it was something like that. Like the good guys had to lie about an election and steal an election. I was like, that's so cool. That's so horrible. I love it. It's so cool. And yes, shitlords, yes, the player characters may have to put elective representatives and buy them, or maybe not buy them. Buy, threaten, blackmail, cajole, the whole 9 yards, just to get the good guys on their side to keep the bad guys from doing it, which maybe makes the player characters kind of bad guys on their own, right? Yeah, there is no alignment in this game. Well, there is an alignment system, kind of, but I'll explain to it in a minute. Let's see. It seems like Obsidian is so wide open, a few simple orbits might be necessary to give people an idea for a campaign goal. But you don't call them campaigns, do you? No, I mean, it's common parlance. I guess I could call them campaigns. But yes, a collection of very common, simple orbits, and say, hey, here's a dozen, using D12, right? Here's a dozen orbits. Roll from 1 to 3 of these orbits, and these things are happening in the background. Here's a good example of very common orbits that would be happening in the background of in this Obsidian. So an example would be many factions have discovered the locations of data cores, and it's important for the player characters to get to the data cores first. So an orbit could be factions discovering data cores. And when the orbit comes back around, one or more of these factions that are happening finds a data core. Criminal organization, paper nations, whatever, pirates, doesn't matter. And data cores are a existential threat. So another orbit could be just the political shifting of the solar system is so open and widespread, it starts to coalesce in one direction or another. So maybe it starts to coalesce into a religious fanaticism or zealotry, or maybe it starts going into a very pragmatic, practical, scientific realm, and the arts, religious institutions, maybe those start flowing away, and AI starts taking over. Maybe there is some kind of a rare virus has been exposed that was on a planetoid, and now it's starting to spread across the solar system, and more places are starting to quarantine themselves, and this dangerous virus is spreading across biological things. So these are types of orbits that you could have in the background. So an example would be if a virus is spreading, but you also have the player characters are fighting against a criminal organization, but there's also some kind of like totalitarian law enforcement processes happening somewhere else in the system, and the quarantine itself starts inhibiting how the players are moving. So they're like, well, we'll just go to, I'm making up a name, we're going to Kowalski Zhang station that we've always been to, and they say, hey, we're coming, and the station goes, nope, we're quarantined. And they're like, yeah, but that's where all our stuff is at. And the station shrugs their shoulders like, whatever, we're not letting you in because we're quarantined because there's a dangerous virus out there. So yeah, social engineering in the post-humanity reality, hell yeah. Memetics, right? It's memetic assassins going around changing people's personalities and social structures to make things happen in the way that they want them to, whether it's destroying them or whatever. Or an orbit behind an orbit. Okay, where you start off on some basic quest and only find out about the real orbit later. Yes, you could, a suggestion could be you have an orbit that's undefined. The player characters don't know why you put an orbit on the table, and they're like, no, it's a 12-point orbit. Well, what is it? You as a player know there's an orbit. Your character may have the hairs on the back of their neck, and they're just like, there's something going on in the background. I just can't put my finger on it. And then the quest is to discover what the hell is going on. And it could be someone activated a data core that is one of these, like an AI system that is so advanced that it can't or couldn't have been created in our own solar system. And what is it doing? It's dominating every electronic system in the galaxy. I mean, in our solar system, and maybe even the galaxy as it spreads around. And someone's like, is this what the signal was meant, that an AI would take over everything? Is this Skynet writ large? Something like that. It could be anything, right? Yeah, Obsidian really could go in any direction, couldn't it? Yes. Hack and slash Obsidian dungeon crawl for the 85ers like me. You're so silly. All right. So I didn't expect to talk about orbits and conundrums, but yes, an orbit is basically a plot line that's happening in the background, and you don't really need to tell your players what that plot is. It could make them want to discover it, which is cool, or it could be something that the player. Here's another strange thing. You could air quotes surprise your players with a plot that's been building. If your players refuse to go after the unnamed plot, and then you come to find out that a military dictator was creating giant kaiju styled robots to walk across the surface of Mars to take it over, and they start dropping from orbit, and the players are like, when did that happen? And you go, yeah, you didn't go after the orbit, so this is the plot that was going to happen. And the PCs go, well, you didn't lie to us. We knew it was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen. Heck, it could be maybe one of those seed ships that left the Oort cloud to go out to Alpha Centauri comes back. And that seed ship comes back with 20 other seed ships, and you're identical to the one that left. And who or what comes out of those seed ships filled with tens of thousands of people? Are they people anymore? What happens? Do they land somewhere and say something peaceful? Can you communicate with them? And that could be an orbit of itself. Yeah, unnamed plot is the surprise birthday party. Well, that's very positive of you there, Drew, and you're not normally like that. I love it. Caligula said, would you even have a conventional party where you have to make up a premise for how they met, like jail or the inn? Well, yes. And my reason for that is because the opposite doesn't work very well. So the party is called a constellation, and the constellation, like looking up in the night sky and looking at how the stars connect to each other to form a figure, is exactly how the player characters are going to come together. And the players are going to decide what kind of constellation they are. So, for example, one player may just be like, look, my character is a mercenary and just goes with the person that pays them. And so they may be connected to other players that are on their own specific mission, but one player character is like, I don't care about your mission. I'm just being paid to do what I do. And so they may be connected to the constellation in that way. Hey, they paid me. I'm loyal. Yes, other people may pay me more, but I promised I would be with them, and I really don't care what they're. We're going to free enslaved Cro-Mags that are on somewhere on Jupiter or something. And PC's like, I don't care. I'm a mercenary. I'm going with you. Or they might be like, we're going to become our own crime lords, and we're going to take over a moon and live in the Jovian system or something. Things like that. Shai says, unnamed orbit would be my approach. Run it by the seat of my space pants. Yeah, hell yeah. Yep, Space Marines. There's your constellation. Easy. Exactly. Yeah. What do? We crush our enemies. We're Space Marines. We're armored up. We've got weapons and things. Yeah, hell yeah. Drop shipping in the whole 9 yards. Yeah, of course. Yes, it's very open-ended. Yes, it is very open-ended. But of course, we want to make stories that our players are going to want to be involved with in the first place. So is it both open-ended and tiny? Yes. So your Space Marines might not, if your Space Marine players aren't very politically minded, I wouldn't put an orbit in there that's very political. Or I would put one in, the player characters just don't have to be involved in it, right? If the political landscape changes and the players are Space Marines, but then to come to find out that when the orbit comes about, that they are left on their own devices while they land on Ganymede, and they thought they would have backup, but now they don't have any support, that may be an orbit that happens in the storyline. And so you tell your players, listen, guys, you guys don't have to be involved in the politics. I'm just letting you know on the horizon, I don't know, the admiral commander or something just got assassinated, and the political landscape has changed or something like that, right? So yeah, Space Marines. Bernat says Space Marines. Or space scavengers looking for scrap metal, Romania in the 25th century. Yeah, scavengers, scientific developers, data core excavators, anything like that. So yeah. And there's going to be a list of the kind of constellations the players want to be involved in. You make up an invasion of space aliens that don't exist as a pretext for enslaving humanity. And the PCs in the constellation are the only ones who know it's BS. Yeah. Lies have been told. And everyone's screaming and yelling, we're going to be invaded by aliens. And the PCs are like looking around like with the glasses on from They Live, like, this is all bullshit. I like it. I like that idea. I like that a lot. And who's to say that society doesn't start to crumble because for some reason, they are being told, or a faction has been able to convince the solar system that there is a massive alien invasion of a society that's like 5 times more advanced than we are. Yeah, I love it. I love it a lot. So just to let you guys know, before we end this here, there is an alignment style system. Let's see if I can find it actually. Because I'm not sure if I know I have it. So there is an alignment. It's more motivation than alignment. I hate to use that word alignment. Um, but there is an alignment system in this game. Each it's my own fault. Um, each one begins with the word with with an E, and here we go. Vectors, arcs, axis. I'm sorry, I'm looking for through this very long file here. Um, and I know there we go. I found it. Yep, I found it. All right, so 150. There we go. And I'll share this instead. There is a little bit of an I gotta get your message out of here just temporarily. Um, so there is a bit of a alignment system. It's a motivation, and so as excuse me, as players individually, you can pick what your motivation is. It may be that all the players want to pick the same motivation, um, to be each one being aligned with each other. So there's the explorer, the extropian, the expansionist, the excellence, the person seeking excellence, expressionist, and the explorer, exploiter. I guess I could rename them. Expansionist, the excellency. It doesn't matter. I guess this would actually be better if it was just expansion. But the idea here is that the explorer wants to travel, discover, uncover, and question the solar system and what's out there, both physically exploring the outer world and questioning the inner world. Extropians want to heal, build, rebuild, design, and care for others. So extropians want to they're not just explorers. They want to build or rebuild society, physical structures, social structures, and things like that. When there's law, where there's chaos in many ways. Expansionists want to colonize, teach, replace, and promote. So explorers I want to go to a new place and then leave. Expansionists are like, we want to get there and stay. Excellence is about learning, training, enhancing, and confronting difficulties. So in excellence, it's very more internal, making oneself better than we used to be. But excellence is also about making people better. So teaching people to new skills, enhancing the physical body, enhancing the places that we live so that they are better, and confronting problems, meaning like a survivalist is kind of like that. Excellence, many of these overlap each other. There's expressionists, which is like art, entertainment, oration, aesthetics. It's basically leaving stories that other people can tell, um, uh, creating the myths that describe who and what we are. And then exploiter is us to steal, to harness, to trap, cage, and claim resources and other things. Exploiters want to exploit people, exploit places, time and places, and things like that. So anyway, that's it. Or let the PCs be the bad guys. Speaking of alignment, yep. Shai says, "Oh, sweet, the motivation system. Well, there you go. That makes the picking an orbit conundrum so much easier." Exactly. And then, expansionist, explorer, exploiter, total realism. Yes, yes. And I wanted to make a motivation, air quotes, alignment system that is self-fulfilling. So it's not that this isn't passive. This is more proactive. So if you are into excellence, you want to go out and learn things. You want to train. You want to enhance and confront problems that other people don't confront, right? Whereas an exploiter, you could make the case that the exploiter is kind of the evil and extropian is kind of the good, but that depends on your personality, right? So for example, a lost colony is out there. An exploiter would be the kind of person that's like, listen, you need to get we need to get ourselves a comet here because you need to exploit the water that is in the comet for its hydrogen and oxygen and water for you to survive. If you don't do this, your whole colony is dead, right? And the exploiter you could be an exploiter of other exploiters. So maybe you're someone you like, I want to play an exploiter, but I don't really want to be someone who's like destroying the environment and stuff. You're like, okay, well, maybe Maybe you're more of like a Robin Hood. You want to exploit the exploiters, and you're going to steal and harness, trap, cage, and claim everything everybody else has taken. That's a possibility. Those are pirates, right? Expression also, I don't want it to be like very like dance and music and art. Expression also means that it's not just having a good idea, but with expression, how do you sell a very good idea? So you have a public that may be like, hey, we don't want to move. And you're telling them you're going to die from radiation. Like, this is you need to leave. How do you convince them? Someone that's an expressionist has a better way to orate their ideas politically, and to convince people that a thing is a good or a bad idea, and to get them to change their minds, probably a lot more than these other ones would. So yeah, so these are the 6 motivations. These 6 motivations, I'm going to go back to something else that I'm going to share with you. These 6 motivations, let's see, I'm going to change this to here. Oh, I forgot to change the word from motivation to conviction. Anyway, I made a mistake. Okay, so we have a strive score, and right off to the side, it says recover, ? You use your connections, and you can recover from 1d12 by interacting with your connections. And your convictions, that's your motivation. I forgot to change it to conviction. You can gain from 1 to 3 strive points just from engaging with your convictions. So when you are in the game and you want to increase your strive score, you default back to this convictions. You default back to your convictions, and to gain a couple of points back, you're an explorer. You go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to free walk on the surface of Mercury to engage in my explorer conviction so I can gain some points back. Does that count? Yeah, it counts. I'm an extropian. I'm going to go to the local hospice care center and donate some time to the hospice center. Does that count? Yes, it counts. I'm an exploiter. I'm going to try to find, get the coordinates from an ice hauler crew, and I want the coordinates for the ice hauler. Now, I'm not going to go after the comet that they're comet wrangling, but I'm going to sell that information to the highest bidder. Does that count? Yes. So these are ways for you to very easily get into your convictions and go, hey, I want my points back. I'm going to, go down to the local pit fighting thing and do some pit fighting, right? To get better at it and things like that, right? You think whatever stuff, you get the point. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for allowing me to share this with you. Yeah, explorer should also be exploration. Yes, you're absolutely. So it should be exploration. Extropian is a thing. I did it wrong. I did it wrong. It is a new word for you. I did not make it up. I'm going to type in extropian, and extropians believe, this is just a simple Google search when I typed in extropian. And if you go to Wikipedia here, extropianism, extropians believe that advances in science and technology will someday let people live indefinitely. An extropian may wish to contribute to this goal by doing research and development or by volunteering to test new technology. Extropianism, also referred to as the philosophy of extropy, is an evolving framework of values and standards for continuously improving the human condition. Extropians believe that advances in science and technology will someday let people live indefinitely. And so I took that definition and then expanded upon it a little bit, that extropians believe in building for the betterment of mankind. So, yep. One who extropes, to extrope something that's easy. I don't know either. Yeah. Not realizing that you can just Google it. A sure sign of the 85 Club. Yes. Extropians believe that advances in science and tech will someday let people live indefinitely. Extropian may wish to contribute doing research. Yep, 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 yep. So that's so yes, yes, I did. The timing was off because your comments came in late. Yeah, exploitation. That is what my character would do. Yeah, yeah. Exploiters. Yeah. None of these motivations are mutually exclusive, are they? Nope, they are not mutually exclusive. Um, During character advancement, remember I said it's plus one, add one, change one. During advancement, you can just change your conviction. Or during the change one step, you can just change your conviction. Hey, I used to be an exploiter that worked for a corporate interest, but during the game, we freed, I don't know, Cro-Mag slaves that were working deep down in the mines, and I didn't like that. So I am no longer an exploiter. I am now an extropian. Obsidian, chaotic neutral, all of them together. Yeah. I don't know if you could put all of them together. Probably three. I think you could probably reasonably put three, maybe four together, but all six, I don't know. The exploiter, there is a bit of a natural opposition. So the extropian and exploiter are absolutely counter to each other. The explorer and no, but they're not really separate because excellence can come from exploring and excellence can come from expansionism. But I don't know, maybe expansion and explorer kind of opposites in a way, because expansionists kind of want to get there and stay and kind of modify what's going on there, whereas the explorers is like keep it natural. I just want to explore what's out. So there's I don't know, something like that. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me express some of this in the show, and thanks for just being part of the like I don't know, part of the conversation. I love it. It gives me a lot to think about. So it's getting a little bit late. Got to head off to work. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Again, if you've gotten this long, please like, share, subscribe. I'm here 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before time changes yet again, I will be here this same time each time. Tomorrow, I have been missing comments that people have been making on videos. So I think what I'm going to do is a summary of people who make comments on the videos to not ignore their comments as well. So if you make a comment on any of the videos for any reason, I will be able to see them. I have not been getting those notifications. So I'm going to actively go in, get those comments, bring them out, that kind of thing. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it and have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility.